Speaking of Mothman.
We have something for you.
Oh,
Ready?
yes. Oh, that is excellent. Oh my God. I have contemplated buying that shirt so many times. I just gotta stop being a coward. I gotta go for it.
So you had sent it to me in a text message, and I was like, yo, we have to get these shirts. So kudos. And I'm like, I literally can't wear this outside. People are gonna be like, what is wrong with this woman?
It's also a bumper sticker, if that would be better for you. I thought
It'll
about
go
getting a
right
bumper
next
sticker.
to my PTA car magnet.
Look out, kids! This is the shit that goes on in our heads Halloween special. Woo! We're gonna be talking about Mothman, serial killers, and so much more wacky stuff. Hold on a second. Hello? What the?
The fucking balloons every goddamn time. Marty, just so you know, we're on Bizzle's laptop, and every time G-Rex and I do the countdown, these like birthday balloons just like float up in the Zoom meeting, and it gets us giggling every single time.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it lights the mood for sure. So here we are. I have no idea what season we're in or what episode at this point, but I do know that today's episode is going to be super fucking fun. G-Rex, how do you feel about spooky things?
Well, I live in a house filled with ghosts anyway, so yeah, I'm okay with it.
What about moths? Do you like that transition straight to moths?
Moths kind of freak me out a little bit, but it's all good.
All right. So for our listeners, what you can't see is that G-Rex and I are currently wearing a shirt that says, "The Mothman ate my entire ass at Denny's." And you'll understand why we got that. We are joined by a very special guest. Her name is Marti Simone. And we're going to just kind of chit-chat. We're going to keep it as an open dialogue. We're going to talk about weird shit. I think. Spooky stuff, maybe. Mothman, possibly.
I hope so.
I mean,
I always hope that the conversation's somehow going to lead to Mothman. And if it doesn't, I kind of force the issue.
Funny, I had to do a Wikipedia on Mothman. I'm like, what the fuck is a Mothman? Now I know.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're so welcome.
Neither of us knew what Mothman was till we met Marti. And then literally getting ready today, I'm like, hey Siri, tell me about Mothman. She just opens up this dialogue about a man, it's a bird that was seen or something. I have no idea. So tell us, Marti, why do you love Mothman so much?
Oh man, so I'm into all weird things. I'm just a generally weird person. I guess. But like I've always liked cryptids, and cryptids are of course are like animals or creatures that are unsubstantiated, like Bigfoot or a Loch Ness monster, where people report seeing them, but there's not like solid proof necessarily they exist. I love that shit. Like I will go and like I would love to eventually have my own podcast where I talk about like different cryptids from each one of the states, because there are so many of them. But Mothman has my heart. He's like definitely he captured my heart. But I think I got into it, like cryptids in general. So I grew up in Taylorsville, Kentucky, which is really close by Louisville, which nobody knows where Taylorsville is, so I just say Louisville most of the time. And we had our own cryptid. It was called the Pope-lick Monster.
That sounds really dirty.
It does,
monster.
Right? They also like sometimes call him the Goat Man, but what it
also
was
dirty.
also pretty dirty. But I grew up like hearing that legend all of the time, like from other kids and even like adults. And some people were like genuinely convinced that he exists. So he was out on Pope-lick Road. That was the name of hence Pope-lick Monster. People aren't very creative in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know what to tell you. he like is described as being this creature that is half man, half goat, half sheep, and sometimes, depending on who's telling the story, he also has deer-like features, kind of like a Wendigo. Which I think is funny that like he's half this, half that. And I'm like, that's not how percentages work. But anyway, some people think he was like a science experiment that went wrong. And then other people say that he was like a farmer that like sacrificed his goats to the devil and got turned into this creature.
Oh.
But the only thing that stays consistent throughout the entire story is that he will lure people out onto this 90-foot tall trellis, or what do you call it, trestle, that goes over Poplick Road. It's a train trestle. He'll lure people out there to their deaths. Either they get pushed off the track by the goat man, or a train comes through. And there's been at least 8 or 9 deaths associated with that trestle, including like the most recent one, which happened in 2019, I think, where it was like a woman and her boyfriend went out there to find the goat man. They were on the trestle. A train came through. He managed to hang off the side, but unfortunately she fell and she passed.
Sus.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm like, okay. So, yeah, I guess you could say my monster like obsession kind of started there, and then I spiraled into like drawing monsters and like sculpting monsters out of Play-Doh, and like I actually have an art business now where that's what I do professionally. So
I know, and your art's awesome.
Oh, thanks. Guess it paid off for me. The other bit of this is that so my mom's best friend actually lived off of Poplick Road and on the top of a hill, and the train and the trestle were right in her backyard. So I was terrified, and she had this big cabin with open, like the entire back of the cabin was glass and open, so you could see like the scenic, it was very pretty up there. But I was terrified to be there at night, which I often was, because my mom would like drop me off and be like, okay, see you in a little bit. She'd babysit me. And one night I'm sitting out there and I'm stupidly staring into the dark, kind of like daring anything to like mess with me. I was like a punk ass little kid. And I saw something. I saw glow. Suddenly I saw like glowing eyes, big horns.
Whoa.
And I'm like sitting there about to shit my pants. And so I scream. I realize it's like a 10-point buck. He's also scared.
Aww.
And he runs away. But that's as close as I ever got to seeing the Poplick monster.
You're like, not today, Poplick monster.
Yeah, I was like, try something. Go ahead.
So, random question. Did you ever get like, if you don't behave, I'm going to put you out there? Like, was that ever a threat to get you to behave properly?
No, I can't remember anybody telling me that. It was more like I think it was more of a cautionary tale, really, to keep people from going on that trestle.
Yeah. Yeah, not safe. Not safe for sure.
Not a great idea. It's like 90 feet in the air. Yeah. Not good.
I feel like we all have like stories like that with where we grew up. So I grew up in Rhode Island, and I don't even remember the name of the road, but there was always like, everybody has like that road or like that street where like if you go at nighttime, like you're going to see something. And I remember we used to do it every Halloween because we were also punk ass kids. Like we were like, yeah, dude, like let's go on this dirt road, turn off our lights, and just wait for like danger to come and find us.
Oh God.
What we did. But I remember like the story kind of was like, if you went out on this road and it was like off the beaten path, like you had to really want to get there, there was all of a sudden like these old abandoned houses, and the story was if you went there, people would come out because there was like a cult that lived in these woods that would kill people that went out on the road. And so for sure every Halloween you would just see like cars lined up to go out onto this road and like everybody would give you like 10 minutes to turn off your light, and for sure there had to be like locals that were just fucking with kids because there were people in those woods. And every year we would get scared and we're like, fuck this, we're out, and like peel out of this dirt road. I don't know why we do that shit as kids.
Yeah. Well, in Colorado, there's a ton of ghost towns because of all the gold mining out there. So we used to go out to the old caves, and everybody's like, don't go in. But, kids are stupid. Okay. Surprised that we made it to 60. We would go out there and we'd like hang out in the beginning of the cave, and like just the stories, people told. And
did you ever see anything weird out there?
Oh yeah, all the fucking time. But it was usually like a bear or a fucking or a deer or a coyote, because we'd be out there at night and, we'd turn our flashlights off. We'd probably be stoned, so you don't know if it's real or not.
You've seen all kinds of things.
And laughing.
That's fun.
So are you a fan of like spooky stuff now? Like horror movies, haunted houses?
Yeah, very much. Actually, next weekend I'm going to Halloween Horror Nights. I go every
Nice.
year.
Yay.
I'm part of the Orlando. We have like a Discord channel where we all get together on Friday nights and we watch scary movies, usually terrible B movies, whatever we can find, which is super fun. So yeah, I'm very much in like the Orlando horror scene. There's a local oddity store that features some of my art and sells it there. And yeah, I'm just like all around super into creepy stuff. And my office is decorated to look like Halloween all year round.
I love that though. Like
Yeah,
yeah, that's cool. I like
fun
that.
with it.
Yeah. So what should we talk about? I think you were gonna do like research or something, or you were gonna
I did, yeah. I wanted to give you guys like a little brief summary of Mothman because I always want to know what other people think of this stuff. Like, also, like, I don't talk about it with like a lot of my friends because I think some of my friends are cool and into it, and then some, I feel like I'm calling people out. I'm sorry, friends. I'm not talking bad about you, but like some of them are not as into this stuff, and I know that they can tell. I can tell they think I'm like a quack or something. But I want to believe. So a little background on Mothman besides them going down on people in Denny's parking lots.
eating the entire ass. Apparently.
It's just the entire ass. He's really committed to the bit.
No ass left uneaten? I don't know.
I mean, Denny's is probably the place you would need it most, so.
That's true. All that flavor after a nice meal. No, sorry. That's gross.
So gross.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm like, I don't even know how to segue, so I'm just going to start.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll set the stage. So Mothman, the first time he was ever sighted, and this is kind of debated, but I'm going to go from what my heart tells me because it's an urban legend. So, so November 12th, 1966, there's two guys. They're working in the cemetery. They're digging graves on the graveyard shift. Haha. It's very dark out, but they hear something overhead. And so they shine their flashlights up and they see a large bird-like dark creature with huge red glowing eyes jumping from branch to branch. And of course, they piece the fuck out of there and they tell everybody in the town about it. And people kind of like, okay, whatever. But then a couple days later, there was another sighting of the creature. So there was two couples, they were driving down Route 62 together. And they were driving past like an old like munitions base where supposedly like they left a lot of like toxic waste and like stuff behind when they cleared out. So that, kind of also sets up the stage for a giant bird moth creature, maybe.
Could happen.
Yeah, could happen. So they were like driving down the road and then suddenly they see this creature standing off to the side of the road. And again, it's like huge. It's like 7 or 8 feet tall. It's got wings and glowing red eyes and it's dark and all of them, they're like, fuck no. So they start hauling ass. Like the guy like just hits the pedal, but they notice that it like rises up into the air and it chases them. And he's like, he swears he got up to like 100 miles per hour and it had no problem following them. But as soon as they hit the city limits of Point Pleasant, Virginia, and like left those limits, I don't know if he's like bound there or something. He stopped following them. So, I wonder if he was like attracted. Now I think about it, like, was he attracted to their headlights? He's a moth.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if
you're already cracking the case.
Yeah, there you go.
That makes total sense, actually.
Yeah, so that sheds some light on the possible reasons he was chasing them. Stupid. I'm so sorry. And this is the point where people turn this episode off.
No, I love it.
So anyway, the next day, the story was all over the news because it wasn't a huge town and they had nothing else. It was a slow news day, I guess. But I love the headline because it says, couple sees man-sized bird, ... creature, ... something? That's the headline. So good.
I fucking
So Mothman became like an overnight sensation. And then there started like other reports started flooding in. There was at least like 8 additional sightings. And so naturally, because of that, an angry mob formed because America. So like a bunch of men and their rifles like went out into the woods and they were like determined to try to like hunt down the Mothman. But somehow, he had managed to evade capture. So good for him. But eventually, the Mothman hype did start to calm down and things just kind of like returned to normal for Point Pleasant until December of 1967. So almost, or actually a little over a year. There was a big tragedy in that town. So there was a bridge collapse that ended up killing 46 people. Whoa. And then they started, like the next day, the reports started coming in. Well, I saw Mothman on the bridge the day before. And it was several reports of people being like, I saw it. So then people are starting to be like, did he have something to do with it? Was he like trying to warn people? But either way, like everybody kind of associated Mothman with that tragedy, whether he was the cause or just, a warning, or he wasn't there at all. It's unknown. But like now he's kind of synonymous with that story of the town. So kind of interesting. But after that, the Mothman sightings kind of like waned down quite a bit until 2016. So a man reported seeing him jumping from tree to tree. He had just recently moved to Point Pleasant. So like he says he didn't know the story of Mothman. Yeah. Somebody like me that loves Mothman, I'm like, I don't believe you, but maybe it's true. But yeah, he was like, I saw this weird creature jumping from tree to tree, called the police to come out and investigate. And then word got around town because again, it's not a huge place. And so that started to like kind of spark Mothman, like interest again. And so he became like headline news again. And then people outside of Point Pleasant started talking about him. And then so much so that somebody in Chicago reported seeing him apparently taking a vacation to the Windy City, just like flying around from building to building.
He needed it.
And that was in 2019. So that's the most recent sighting that's been, I've got my fingers doing the quotation marks, verified.
Dude, you would think, like, how old is Mothman?
Yeah, I mean, right? He'd be a boomer, probably.
Yeah, like, man, good for him.
It's probably, I don't know, but what's the lifespan of a Mothman, I wonder? Like,
I don't know.
That's a good question.
I don't know. If they get too close to the light, they burn.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's evaded that this whole time.
Now we know how to catch him. Just get a bat signal.
Yeah.
Put a moth on it.
See? This is why you
We're coming up with really good resolutions for this problem, this Mothman issue.
Right?
I'm very pleased with how this conversation's going.
Yeah. But like in all seriousness, if I saw a man with wings coming at me full speed, like I'm fucking terrified. I'm leaving the country. I'm never returning. Like I am out, bud. Like never again.
Is that like the same fear that you have of spiders? I'm just wondering.
No, I think Mothman would open up a whole different level of fear because it's like, is he like, what is he thinking? Right? Like a spider. I don't ever wonder what is the spider thinking.
Fight or flight.
Yeah. Mothman. I'm like, this guy's fucked up. Like he's crazy,
It's true. You never know what he's gonna do. He might fly at your car or interrupt you while you're digging a grave or harass you at Denny's.
I know. Eat my
You just never know. The guy gets around. He's a busy fellow.
I mean, now we know what his like diet is, right?
Yeah. Puts like a whole new spin on the Grand Slam.
Oh my god. Oh, I'm dying.
I can't wait for Bizzle to edit this later. Be like, you took too much time talking about your ass at Denny's.
Probably.
And laughing.
Yeah. Well, that's wild.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily clear whether or not Mothman exists. I like to think maybe he does. I think there's a lot of things in the world that we don't necessarily know about or haven't discovered. So I don't think it's so wild to think that maybe there are cryptids out there. You just never know.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing about Mothman, of course, goes back to butts again. What in the hell is going on? So every year they have a festival in Point Pleasant. There's a Mothman museum, which I am dying to visit. But the best thing is there is like a 7 or 8 foot statue of Mothman that is chrome. It's very shiny. But people come around like from all over to get pictures and make like a pilgrimage out because whoever sculpted him gave him the juiciest butt you've ever seen. If you get a minute, Google Mothman's butt statue.
That has to be where these shirts come from. I was like, why is
it
the
must.
ass?
People love this statue. It's gotten the nickname the Shiny Hiney and the non-Rusty Dusty.
He's double caked up.
He's double kicked up on a Tuesday. It's insane. I remember when I first heard about the statue, as I was doing like Mothman research, like I do, like a normal person does in their free time.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, look at the statue. And so I looked at it, I saw it from the front. And I'm like, okay, they're like, go look for pictures of the backside. And I was like, go. Amazing.
Yeah, that would be fun to talk to the artist of that. Like, so tell me, what was your motivation? Like, what was your inspiration here? Why the booty? That's hilarious.
It's Mothman gay. I just, I don't know.
Who's to say?
Yeah.
He might be fluid. He has no preference, probably.
He just really likes butts. That's all I know. The artist is like, I just really like butts, and I think the world should hear my message.
I love that, dude. I love that.
Dirty Skittles is dying.
I know. There's two ways I want to take this conversation, but I'm going to go this way first. So Nugget, today, he's gotten very insightful. Like, he likes to ask you questions, and I try my hardest to answer him as honestly as possible. Like, I try not to fluff the story, right? And so today he asked me, because we drove by a cemetery, and he's like, Mom, are zombies real? And I'm like, well, it depends on who you ask. Like, that was my approach, thinking like that's where the conversation will stop. But he's like, no. He's like, well, I'm asking you. And I'm like, fuck. And I'm like, you know what, son? I think anything is possible. And he's like, well, where are they? And I'm like, well, they're only going to come out when the zombie apocalypse happens. And he's like, what's an apocalypse? And I'm like, damn, dude. Like, I couldn't get away from this conversation. But like, he's very into like creepy stuff, zombies, vampire. Like, he loves this shit. So I think he would.
Oh, that's awesome.
This hence is why I took him to that store that you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
Because he loves that stuff. Like, he wasn't scared. He was just looking at all the oddities in there and wanting to take something home. And I was telling my family afterwards, because I was in there with my mom, who is deathly afraid of anything spooky. Other than she'll watch movies, but she's not gonna like go to a haunted house. So she's in the store with me, and she's like, where have you brought me? I need to go to church. Like, we need to go and say a prayer. And I'm like, Mom, chill. Like, we're just looking around, bud.
The people that own that shop are two of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life. Yeah,
they're so sweet. They're like, would you like some chai tea? I'm like, sure. And I'm like all up in it. Meanwhile, Max is like touching like the skeletons. I'm like,
and your mom's like praying in the corner.
Yeah,
nice.
She made it all the way to the back, and there was like a chicken and like some candles, and she was like, I gotta go eat in the car. I gotta leave. I'm like, hold on. But like, the joke after was literally the conversation I had with Nugget to get him out of the store, because I made my purchase. I'm ready to leave, and he's like shaking this jar of teeth. Like, I think it was like raccoon teeth or something. And he's like, Mom, can I get this? And I'm like, son, put the jar of teeth down, dude. We gotta go. Like, I'm like, I never thought that sentence.
That's so cool that he's into that. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're going to Salem at the end of this month. Because one of his favorite movies is Hocus Pocus, and just the stuff in Salem in general. Like, he wants to learn about the witches, and that was a tough conversation. Like, well, why did they all die? Yeah. And I'm like,
yeah.
So yeah,
I would explain that to somebody so small.
I know, but I feel like he's asking, and I want to give him, like a 5-year-old version of the truth, but not just make up some story or dismiss the conversation. So it's always, conversations with a 5-year-old are always fun.
My son's 1, so he's not quite there, but I'm sure he will have questions because his room is cryptid themed. So I had it set up to look like you're camping. So you walk in, it looks kind of like a little campsite. And then in between like the trees and the shelves and like all the cutesy little bears and raccoons, I've hidden like a bunch of different cryptids. There's Bigfoot, and I have a Yeti in there, and I have Loch Ness Monster and a Puckwudgie. I have 2 different types of Mothman. The Fresno Nightcrawlers. I have quite a few, like just kind of tucked here and there. So I'm sure one day he's going to be like, what are those anyway? And I can't wait to tell him.
I can't wait for him to be drawing at school, and he draws the Mothman, and the teacher's going to be like, what is happening at all? Or she'll be like, that's the Mothman.
Maybe she'll be a really cool teacher.
I know, right? Besides the Mothman, the other question I was curious about, is there anything non-cryptid that you find interesting that's equally as weird or?
Yeah, actually, like I also love like ghost stories and that kind of thing. I've seen some weird stuff. One of my best friends is a paranormal investigator, so I make her report back to me on all of her findings. I love that kind of stuff. I like going into like old cemeteries and like doing tombstone rubbings, and like I just think it's really fascinating to see like what the different styles are through the years, and then like people it's kind of like a lot of people think I'm like very morbid, but I don't think I am. I think it's more like I life is short, and also we should remember people. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm getting all sentimental, but like life is short, and sometimes it's nice to be reminded of that in a weird way. Also, it's a kind of cool to see like the tombstone wrappings, and that's somebody's life. Like that's a person that existed. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm into most paranormal spooky things. I'm not super into aliens. I believe they exist. I'm just very scared of the thought of them. So I put that on that's the only thing I'm just kind of like, I don't like that.
You would love it up here. So we are like 5 houses away from a really old cemetery. Yeah. Probably from the 1600s.
Whoa.
And our house was part of the Underground Railroad. So we have a couple of ghosts in the house. They're young and very active, especially right around Halloweenish time.
Yeah.
They are insane. So we had lived up here almost 3 years, maybe 2. Anyways, I'm upstairs laying in my bed, and I feel something brush against my toes. And I'm like, okay, so I try and go back to sleep. And I feel it again, and it really feels like, so I have a sleep number bed, and so it felt like the bottom of the bed sunk down a little bit, and something was brushing against my toes. So then I immediately turn on my fucking like light. Like now I sleep with my light on. So I called one of the guys here in the village who's really into the paranormal and everything. And he said, it's a young man. He's around probably 10 years old and just feels very comfortable in my room. He's like, what you need to do is like have a discussion with him and tell him to go play in the hall. So I have a little discussion with a ghost I can't see, but I can feel. I can feel the presence, right? And I'm like, listen, you can play in my room anytime you want from like 8 until 5, and then you got to play in the fucking hall. And so my friends like put some board games or something out in the hall to attract them out there. So I do that, get up the next morning. Now the cats all have their own rooms and they're locked in, right? Get up. The games are now 2 feet away from where I originally put them.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I have since saged the fuck out of my room. Like, don't fucking come back. He used to play in my wife's room, and until she yelled at him, and then he came over to my place. So what's really cool is that the people that owned the house before us had twin boys, young. And they used to be able to talk to the ghost. And the ghost used to stand at the bottom of the stairs and sing Frere Jacques in perfect French. Perfect. And they had an old picture in the house. It was a young Black family. And every time they hung the picture up, when they would come back down the next morning, the picture would be on the floor.
Huh.
Because apparently the ghost didn't like that picture.
Huh.
That's creepy.
Yeah,
that is creepy.
But the house itself is very healing. So when you walk into the house, you can feel the healing energy in the house. And so the ghost itself, he's just, like I said, it's just a kid. But man, he gets a little rambunctious sometimes.
As long as he's not threatening or causing too much trouble. Yeah, that's a nice idea to like set board games and things out that like children would like, so that he has something to do. I imagine he would get pretty bored after your first 100 years or so of being a ghost.
And what's funny is the cats all sense the presence too.
Yeah.
And so they are all very active. Like we have 3 cats upstairs, and you can hear them upstairs like bouncing around and playing, and they're all in separate rooms.
Oh, do you think maybe he goes in and plays with the cats? That's very sweet.
I think so.
Aw.
Dang.
I think I'd let him stay too. I'd just be like, hey, just let me get my rest. I need to get my sleep in.
You got 2,700 square feet. Do whatever the fuck you want. Maybe don't come in here between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. That would be fine.
That's fair.
Set the boundaries.
Yeah.
God, I feel like I don't have like anything like that. I have like weird stories. So when I also lived in upstate New York, and at the time Bizzle was he was debating on whether or not starting a t-shirt printing company. And so we were in Elmira, New York, and we went to look at like the potential office space for this t-shirt printing company. And there was these two buildings. They were part of the Historical Society. I have no idea how long they have been standing there, other than if you bought one, you had to get the other one. It was like 2-for-1 deal. And I thought, that's really weird, right? Like, it was relatively inexpensive for two buildings, and they were huge. They were like 3 or 4 stories tall. So we go, and the realtor is like, I don't actually have a key to get in through the front door, so we all need to look for a door and see if there's one that's open. And we're like, huh.
That doesn't sound sketchy.
Yeah, we're like, okay. It was literally me and Bizzle and his friend. And we go and we find the back door has basically been kicked open by like who knows what or who, right? So we're like, well, this door's open. I guess we're going in. And the whole time I'm telling Bizzle, like, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. Like, this doesn't feel right. We shouldn't be here. We go look at the first building, and it when I tell you that it was as if the people who were there before just got up and left, but left everything behind, that was it. So the first building, it used to be like an old, I'm guessing like a hardware store where they sold paint and paint brushes and all this stuff. So we walk in, and I immediately start eyeing all these like antique, vintagey type of things, like everything from like soda, like Coca-Cola was stocked, these old Coca-Cola bottles, and like there was like this huge copper cash register, like those old school ones. And so I asked the realtor, I'm like, okay, if we get these two buildings, do we get everything inside? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, you know me, I'm like, cha-ching, cha-ching, like adding up the value of these items.
Also, the cash register makes that sound. So
yeah.
Maybe that's what you were hearing.
Yeah. A ghost cash register. Well, we actually did like open it up to look inside, and there was just IOUs. Like, it was really fucking weird.
Oh no.
But so we're touring the first building. It's a paint shop on the bottom floor / hardware store. And then the second and third floor looked to be office spaces, right? And it was such an old building, like parts of the ceiling were falling in. There was definitely like mold. So now I'm like, shit, like deducting, right? Like from all this value that we saw downstairs. And so we asked, can we see the second building? And she was a little hesitant. Pulled the same thing. Well, I don't know how to actually get inside the second building because we don't have a key to the outside door. And we're like, well, it's really important. Like, we have to see it or whatever. So there's a hole in a wall that we had all 4 of us, the realtor, me, Bizzle, and his friend, had to climb through this hole to get to the other building. And it immediately led us to, like, you could tell the front door of this building, when you open it up, you just saw this grand staircase. There was nothing else, right? And it had like the tin roof. So I was like, oh, this is so cool, but it's dark. There's no lighting. And I could just see like newspapers all over the floor. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So like we go up these stairs, and it looked like there was like definitely a fire at some point, water damage. Like there's like the third floor had completely caved into the second. And the that first level was, after you go up the stairs, was an apartment. Clothes, shoes, toothbrushes, toothpaste, beds, toys, shoes, like left.
Weird.
From like, I don't know, the 60s, 50s or 60s. Like, it was old stuff. And I'm like, this, like, I feel like we're in somebody's home. And like, it had like an inch of dust on it. So it wasn't like anybody was actively living there. Like, this is like old shit, but like, they didn't take anything. Like, it was just they themselves had left. There was family photos. It was really fucking weird. And of course I'm like, oh my gosh, like we gotta go. Like, I'm like, we're not allowed to be in here. We gotta go. Like, I'm feeling that vibe of like, get the fuck out of our house. And but Bizzle's all about a deal, and now this is like a museum to him. Like, he's like, oh, let's check out this, and I'm like, no, we gotta go, bud. But they had like this. I remember they had the stove was like one of those old stoves. So we have pictures somewhere online if he still has them, but we started taking pictures of everything because we thought, well, if we do get these buildings, I want to know how much the stuff is worth. We go to the second apartment that was there, same scenario, all the stuff is left, family photos, there was keys, jewelry, there was like a little kid's room, which was super fucking creepy.
That is so creepy.
And we ended up all of us at the same time realizing like, we gotta go, like something is really off, we gotta leave. So we leave the building. We start reviewing the photos after because we're telling everybody the story of like, it's just how strange this is. And on the back door, I shit you not, the door that we walked in that had been kicked in, there was like these 2 handprints that you couldn't see like as you're standing looking at the door. They weren't there. It's after when you're looking at the photos, there were 2 handprints on the door. And I'm like, we can't go back. Like, we cannot fucking do this. But it like was so interesting to me that I remember in upstate New York going to the Historical Society to get information. Like, what were these buildings? Who lived there? Like, why is all their shit there? And the Historical Society's like, we actually lost all of those records in a huge fire, so we don't know. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no. We're out. Like, count us out, dude. Like, never again.
That is so creepy. I wonder what happened to those people.
I know.
I would have done the same thing. I would have tried to track down the information somehow, but like the fact that the records are gone makes it so much creepier.
I know.
Eerie.
I'm like, this is weird, dude. And like we ended up, I remember us like even digging as far as like we met with somebody that was writing about the history of that area, but she was writing it specifically on like serial killers and stuff like that. So like we had even asked her, like, is there anything that you found about these spaces? And the only thing that we got confirmation on was that hardware store, that the owner of that store lived in one of those apartments. And I guess he was like a raging alcoholic. And like there was like a messy divorce and all of that. But we're like, why didn't they take any of that shit though? Like, everything was left. It was weird, dude.
That's so uncomfortable. I wonder, that'll haunt me for a while.
Yeah. I mean, now those buildings are like legit apartment buildings. I was like, well, good luck to those people that like somebody did buy them and made them into like rental apartments. Like, it's fucking weird.
I'd love to go in there and try to do some EVPs. I bet you'd get some weird shit.
Yeah, it was crazy. I gotta see if he has those photos. It was really
creepy. Have the creepiest stories because didn't you meet a freaking serial killer when you were a kid too?
Not when I was a kid. I was like 24-ish in my 20s.
A kid. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was weird. Which apparently, Marty, you were like, oh my God, you met the Rhode Island Ripper? Is that what you called it?
You met the Rhode Island Ripper, who I've heard of before, because that's another one of my areas of special interest. Is I also find serial killers to be interesting. That is really wild to me that you were at a party. Is that right with him?
Yeah, it was one of my close friends that I grew up with. I won't say her name on here, but it was her daughter's birthday. And like, I think it was like, I don't know, maybe her second birthday, but like, we're like Hispanic. So, give us a reason to party. We're partying. So it was her second birthday. It was super late at night. I got there with the person I was dating at the time, and we're sitting at a table and we're just talking, just having a conversation, vibing. And this is why I say trust your gut. 'Cause like all of a sudden I felt like something was wrong. And I remember looking over at the door and this person caught my eye. This guy walked in, and I don't know what it was about him other than, like, if I had to pin it on one thing, he walks into a party full of single girls, his age, ladies, and he only focused on my friend's daughter. And like, to the point, like, he walked into the door, he knelt down and was talking to her. Didn't acknowledge anybody else, didn't even look at anybody else. And I thought, that's weird. And then as he got up, like, I remember telling her, hey, there's something weird about this guy. Get your daughter away from him. Like, there's just something weird. Like, I'm telling you. And I remember being like, you know, when I get serious, I'm like, get your daughter the fuck away from this guy. And she's like, okay. Like, what? Like, I know him. Like, it's fine. And I'm like, no. She gets her daughter away. And I continue to kind of watch him. And I remember telling the guy I was with, I was like, we gotta go. There's something about this dude. It's freaking me out. Like, we gotta go. He was just weird, bro. He just had like this, like, I believe in energy. And there was just something gross and like dirty and dark about this guy that it rubbed me so wrong. And like, we were across the room. Like, it wasn't like he was sitting next to us talking to us. Like, I could just tell this dude's off. So we leave the party. Fast forward like a couple months later, I get a call from her and she's like, are you watching the news? And I'm like, no. She's like, turn on the TV. I turn on the TV and I'm looking at this guy and it takes me a minute because like I didn't quite understand. And then I'm like, oh, that's that fucking guy. Yeah, he's like a serial killer. He was just killing hookers. And like,
you have amazing intuition.
Dude, I was like, I fucking told you. And she's like, oh my God, you're so weird. Like, she's like, I can't believe you could tell. And I'm like, yeah, like he was like high school best friends with her now husband. Gosh. So like it was like nobody knew. And I'm like, fuck that guy. But yeah, he's a creeper, dude. So I thought
you knew.
I mean, I knew. I didn't.
You did.
Shit, I didn't know it was that, but damn.
You gotta trust your gut. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, trust your intuition, man. I think your body just has a natural way of telling you you're in danger, you know?
That is so scary. Yeah.
Yeah, creepy.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm trying to think. I have several weird, creepy stories I could probably. So, I grew up in an antique store. My mom had an antique store. Grew up there. She had a doll hospital in our basement. She loved those old, like, life-size dolls from like the 50s and 60s. And she would get them from like auctions and they'd be like missing eyeballs and limbs and just the creepiest looking things in the world. And we had a basement full of them. We're talking like this entire basement wall to wall is full of them because she would refurbish them and then she'd sell them in our antique store. Mm-hmm. And at the time, like that was a big trend. People were like, you know, reliving their childhood, you know, I get it. And they wanted the dolls from, you know, what they grew up with. So my mom had this whole doll hospital operation. I hated going downstairs into that basement. But then she decided that she was going to take some of her favorite dolls and put them across in the room across from me. And I hated it. So every night I would make sure my door was shut and locked. And then the door to the room with all the creepy dolls that she collected. Because you'd walk in and just eyeballs on you all the way around the room, these stupid dolls. And they were as big as I was at the time because I was a child. And I remember every morning, though, I'd go back and that room, that door would always be opened a crack. And it was a good tight seal on it. It wasn't like it had like a flimsy like handle. I was convinced that those dolls were out to get me. I still hate. I never was a doll person. And I think it's because of that. I always had plush animals. I was always way more into like plushies. And I think that's why. But yeah, every morning. And I'd ask my mom, like, did you, because I was upstairs. It was like a Cape Cod style house. So it was just my room and the room across from me upstairs. Did you come upstairs last night and go in your room? She's like, no, why? I was like, please just tell me it's you. Like, please tell me, lie to me and say it's been you. But yeah, like every morning. And there was always like stuff out of place in that room because my mom would accuse me of like, I've told you not to touch my dolls. Don't play with my dolls. And I'd be like, I don't even go in that room. I'm so terrified of it. She's like, well, things were moved around. I know your dad didn't do it. And I'm just like, I hate it here. So definitely to this day, if I see like a large doll, I'm just like, nope, no, thank you. I'm good.
Marty, that reminds me of when we were looking for houses up here. We would go into like the creepy basements.
Yeah.
And one of the creepy basements we walked into was like a doll with a clown face.
No.
And I couldn't even get down the stairs. So I'm like,
wait,
nope,
it was in the
I'm
basement?
out. It was in the basement. You walking down into the basement and you saw like a creepy doll with the creepy clown face. I was like, nope. I walked back. I left my wife and the realtor and I walked the fuck out of I mean, I'm small, right? Yeah. So my little fucking legs, I'm like
double timing it
to get out of the house. I'm like, nope, we're not moving here.
No,
oh my word.
I don't blame you. Yeah. Like you said, trust your gut.
Yeah. Was your mom's dolls out of the box in the basement too?
Some of them were like in different various states of like undress and being fixed and stuff. So she actually had like a tub of arms and like a tub of legs and eyes and stuff. I was just terrified of it.
Fuel.
And then to make matters worse, her antique shop was in downtown Shelbyville, Kentucky. And it was right off Main Street. And it was at what used to be like this beautiful grand hotel, but they broke it into like sections and turned it into like antique shops. And so my mom had like one little portion of it that was just her shop. But it was also famous because there was a very famous murder in front of her shop. And also, like, people died in there because it was a hotel, and that happens sometimes. So that place was haunted, very haunted, and so things would go missing. There was the ghost of the bellman named George. So every night, like, we'd go to lock up the registers and lock up things, and the keys were always not where we left them. So all you'd have to say is like, George, come on, we really need to get out of here, and like turn around, and the keys would, and you're like, I already checked that spot. I know I did, and the keys would be sitting there.
That's crazy.
Just weird stuff like that was always happening. One lady said that like that he pinched her bum a few times. He was kind of a jerk, so it was just like he was always stealing our stuff and moving it around. And then a few more than, it wasn't just one lady, it was a couple of ladies said that they felt like somebody had like touched them or like had been creepy, and they turned around, nobody would be there. And I'm just like, well, at least that didn't happen to me. But it was definitely, and it was just a really creepy place because like up in the attic, some of the stuff, kind of like you're saying, was just like left there. Like the hotel closed and they just left a bunch of crap back there. So, and we didn't use the attic. So I'd go up there sometime when I wasn't supposed to, but I'd go up there to like play and like check out all this old shit from like the hotel. Very, very creepy thinking back on it.
Do you believe like objects could be haunted? Or like carry
like
energy?
It has an attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. I think maybe one of those dolls had an attachment.
That's what I was thinking of when you were telling that story. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, no way, dude.
Yeah.
That's wild. We stayed at there's a hotel in Key West. Like do you like to like go to places and like hotels and stay if you know that it's quote unquote haunted?
Yeah.
Is that your vibe? Yeah. Okay, so there's a hotel in Key West.
Okay.
Look, we went for a friend's birthday, super last minute. Bizzle booked the room. I just showed up. Like I didn't invest any time into looking at. First of all, I didn't think Florida was haunted. I don't know. Maybe that's the ignorant in me. like it was like New England, haunted. Yes. New York, absolutely. Savannah, yes. But like Key West, I had no idea. So we like go to a friend's birthday. We check into the room, and immediately I'm like, ew, something's off, right? Like this room feels weird. The vibe is off. I couldn't get a single night of sleep. Like when I tell you, first of all, the elevator stopped at the 4th floor every single time we would take it to go down. So much so that Bizzle, like I would look at him, I'm like, you see, something is wrong. And he's like, all right, fine. This is a little weird. Like he started to acknowledge shit, but like I couldn't get a night of sleep because I was woken up at 3 o'clock every day. And
the witching hour.
That's
creepy. Yeah.
Ew.
That's when spirits are said to be like the most active.
It was 3 a.m. every single day.
Oh, yikes.
And then I would go to the bathroom, right? And it was like an older hotel, so like it's a smaller space. So I would go to the bathroom and like I just felt like there was somebody in the bathroom. Like it was weird. I couldn't get back to sleep. I would try and I could just see like a bunch of faces when I would close my eyes, like the whole time. Ooh. I just didn't get any sleep. And I remember because when I would get woken up at 3, I could hear like footsteps coming towards the bed, or I would hear knocking on the fucking headboard. And last night, finally, Bizzle heard all these things that I had been hearing. And I'm like, do you see what I'm saying? And he's like, yeah, no, I hear the knocking. I hear the steps. And I'm like, I fucking told you. And then like fast forward to after, of course, because one of my really good friends, like I was texting her the whole time. And she's like, whatever you do, don't Google it till you get home. And I'm like, okay. She's like, you're fine. Everything's going to be fine. Don't Google it till you get home. When I got home on the road back, like on the drive back, I was Googling it. And I'm like, this is like one of the most haunted spots in Key West. Like, why would you do this to me? But, you know, if that's your jam, hit up La Concha.
I would check it out. Yeah.
They should pay us for free advertising here in T-Rex.
St. Augustine, I think it's like the oldest city in America. And so it's said to be like wildly haunted. And it's so dumb because I live in like the area, like I live in Central Florida. So it's like Why haven't I been up there yet? I really need to go up there.
You should.
I've done like ghost tours other places, and I need to go up there and do their ghost tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the ghost tour in Savannah. I've done the ghost tour in New Orleans. We did the ghost tour in St. Augustine. There are some really haunted houses, haunted hotels here in upstate New York. And there's also a super haunted hotel in Colorado. It's in Estes Park. It was regarding The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
That's in Colorado?
Okay. Nope, I'm not ever going to stay there again.
Why?
Okay?
Oh, you did it
you stay
once?
there?
I did. Yeah, when I was a kid and young, dumb, stupid, and stoned. Anyways, if you're going to do it, don't go stoned, because you know what? Things are creepy as it is. You don't need to add that extra layer of I don't really know where the fuck I am sense to it, okay? But yeah, super haunted.
Oh, the Overlook. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they called it The Shining. I want to go there really badly. My friend, I was talking about, the paranormal investigator, she lives in Colorado. So she like does all of these things. She stayed there before. I'm so jealous. But the funny part is she's really into it, but she's like, I still don't know if ghosts exist. I have not really seen a whole lot of definitive things, but actually her most recent one she did was in Waverly Hills over in Kentucky. And she said that was the first time she actually did see a full body apparition in all of her years investigating.
Wow.
So I guess it's no longer true. She doesn't have proof, because she said she did see something this time. And she was like, yes, it finally happened.
Can you imagine being the ghost and like you're so used to everybody freaking out, and then you get that one person like, yes,
yay.
They're like, finally I'm appreciated. Jesus Christ.
I have some pictures that have like an aura on certain parts of the room.
Oh, that's cool.
Creepy,
bro.
It creeped me out.
Creepy, dude.
Creepy. So what else do you know?
So I actually looked into where you guys are from, like what your cryptids are from your states.
Oh, tell us.
Yeah.
So let's see. I have you with the Gloucester. I'm probably saying that wrong. Gloucester Ghoul from Rhode Island. I knew I was going to say it wrong.
I don't know what it is. Tell me.
All right, and it is said to be a creature that lurks in the woods of the northeastern part of Rhode Island, and that is the size of a cow with but it has webbed duck feet, and it has big ram horns and bat wings.
What the fuck?
The best part is that it can shoot fire from its eyes and mouth.
I feel like this is something G-Rex would describe after she's stoned.
Exactly.
That's creepy.
I mean, like, was it just a cow somebody put like flippers on?
Right? The webbed feet.
So wild. Yeah, I'm trying to imagine what that would look like.
I wonder.
Maybe.
Are there wetlands up there? They maybe need that wet feet to get around, but not really.
And if it's the size of a cow, it's going to sink anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is just somebody's cruel joke for an animal. You're as big as a cow, not fast though.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's got bat wings too. I'm just trying to like.
They better be fucking strong.
Do you guys remember that show Gargoyles, that Disney show?
Yes.
I'm kind of picturing that.
Oh.
And so you mentioned Colorado. So I looked up Colorado and found one of my favorites. I'd forgotten that they were from that region, but the Tommyknockers.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the caves. So you probably know, you're probably all too aware of them. So they're said to be like tiny tricksters. They're kind of like leprechauns, and they reside in Colorado's gold and silver mines. And some people, like the miners, believed that all like the eerie underground noises that you would hear could be attributed to the Tommyknockers, and that they weren't like bad. They were actually pretty helpful because they were thought to like warn like the miners of impending disasters by knocking from the inside of the walls to let them know they needed to get out before a collapse happened.
That's so really nice. Yeah. How sweet!
I
know.
I was like, what a nice one
to be in the caves knocking on the walls. Kidding, but that's really nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that we're ending on a happy note because we've talked about serial killers.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I was like, yeah, let's end on something nice. The Tommyknockers. They sound like they're pretty chill. So.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, they're all about my size. You know, it's all good.
I'm only 5 foot, so I'm right there with you.
It's okay to be not okay. Just make sure you're talking to someone.